on up, guys. Don't be shy. So Louis always gets me fired up. Doesn't he get you fired up? You're like, right, I'm just going to start planting straight away, leaving this room to plant a tree. So now, I'm very excited for what's going to be an exciting conversation with three amazing expert panelists that we have here today. We've got Sebastien Roumegous, who is the founder and CEO of BIOSPHERES, the European leader in regenerative agriculture consulting. And with his team, he's operating across 30 countries, restoring over 200,000 hectares, quite impressive. And those hectares are currently in transition across viticulture, large-scale farming, livestock, and arboriculture. And he works with major agri-food cosmetics and luxury brands to transform their supply chains from the ground up. Thank you for joining us, Sebastien. Then we have Zuzanna Zielinska, I always pronounce it incorrectly, sorry. And she's the founder of HarvestCare and the co-founder of RIA, which stands for Regenerative Healthcare European Association. And Zuzanna is based in Rotterdam, and she's running some of the first food as medicine randomized controlled trials, science, that link diets that support soil health directly to human health outcomes, as well as building an agri-health impact bond, which we're going to get into a little bit later. And her argument is radical and simple, that regenerative agriculture is a healthcare intervention, and that we should fund it like one, which I completely agree with. And then we have Pierre Girard here on the end, last but not least. And Pierre is a scientific journalist, a documentary maker, and a presenter on ARTE. Am I pronouncing that correctly? ARTE. Thank you. His films have won the Prix Reporter d'Espoir and the Prix de l'Information Scientifique de l'Académie d'Agriculture. And he's just published a book, like Louis, on soil and regenerative agriculture across Europe, kind of tracking all of the different solutions and farmers doing amazing things on the ground. And a little plug, he'll be signing that at the bookstore later with Louis, so you can go down there and get a signed copy. He believes constructive journalism about soil is one of the most urgent communications challenges of our time. So, guys, let's kick off with a bit more of a chilled icebreaker. What's your favorite thing about soil? Sebastien.
I think it has a little bit be said. Actually, the soil is a converter. So you take like plants that are just decaying and you convert that into nutrients that can convert into plant again. So it's literally the intestine of the world. So that's very nice to know and to say.
Converter, love it. Zuzanna.
Well, I guess I will have to stick to the healthcare perspective to just be so grateful that the soil is the primary nurture of our bodies and a preventative and interventive medium of our health.
The foundation of care.
And I will try to be the communicator and journalist about soil. I like the fact that everywhere where I go in Europe, in France, it has a different structure, texture, smell, and I love the smell of soil after rain, the petrichor, because it's the smell of life, and I like the way that how soil is carrying the message of life.
Beautiful. I think we all love that smell. Great, so getting to the more serious stuff. So Zuzanna, I'm going to start with you. You're a resident nutritionist here, so big shout out to Zuzanna there. Can you talk about the connection between soil farming and human health and explain a little bit about how that shows up in your work?
Yes, so I think because we are starting this panel, I will start from the problematic part of this connection and where we are in the system right now. And I think there's three main layers here. One is the consolidation of a farmland and how this consolidation leads to increase of a monoculture and how the monoculture in our soils then is presented in the monoculture in our plates. When I think that glucose market in Europe is $16 billion every year and to increase by another 10 billion. And when you think about the logic of it, that we are using the most precious resource on this planet, which can nurture us to grow, sugar beets that then will be used in ultra-processed food, which will end up inflating our bodies and end up causing a huge healthcare cost into our society and also, of course, human suffering. That's one of the really problematic pathway. Second is the conventional farming practices with severe tillage and overuse of fertilizers and pesticides. We know now leads to quite significant reduction of nutritional density, so our food is becoming less and less present, like vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals are becoming less present in our food, which is of course problematic when we have a limited capacity of calories that we can take per day, and now having to, instead of 1 carrot, having to consume 3 carrots, that might be quite of a challenge. And then the third one, I think, within this pathway from disturbance of soil to disturbance of what we produce and what we eat at the end, is of course what's accessible to people. So we work with underprivileged population in Rotterdam and in neighborhoods where we operate in past 15 years, that accessibility to healthy produce reduced by 60%, whereas we saw an increase of fast food accessibility by 40%. And that in itself has a huge healthcare consequences, and I think now it's time to figure out all together, from farm to supply chain to healthcare, how can we reverse this dynamic.
Absolutely, and I love the way that you refer to monoculture on our plates, reflecting the monoculture on our farms. I think that's really clever. Thank you, Zuzanna. And Pierre, we're kind of touching upon how we reach audiences with this message and how we kind of let people know about what's going on with soil health and then in turn with our health. You've been working as a solutions journalist trying to expose the importance of soil health for many, many years. And you've also been doing research into how much that is being covered by the media. Could you give us a bit of an indication of just how much airtime soil health is getting currently in the media and why that might be?
Yeah, it's a big topic. I'm also a member of the board of the French Association for Science Journalists, the AJSPI, where we are monitoring the airtime of environmental questions, issues, climate, biodiversity. And I can tell you that environmental questions are covering like 5%, 7% some years of the airtime in news programs in France. I mean, it's just for France, these numbers, these figures. And among these questions, biodiversity is like 1.5%, and soil is even less than that. So there is a long way to go to make soil more visible in the media. That's one of my my goals in my work as well as a science journalist. I do it for ARTE, as you said, for television. I do it also on my YouTube channel because it's a bit easier to be your own broadcast, so to say, on YouTube to decide which topics you want to push. And yeah, one of the main problems is that we are discussing with people in our redactions that are more urban, that are less aware of this topic. So this is a long way to go to convince them. And I can just take one example, the plastic pollution. It's amazing how aware we are of plastic pollution in the ocean. We see the turtles, we see these mountains of plastic bottles going around in the water. But it's crazy to realize that it's millions times bigger, this problem, when you go into soil. We are just starting to realize that microplastics are entering our bodies because we can now measure it, we can now see it, monitor it in our bodies. And we have like a rule in journalism to say a topic is important to people, to our audience, when it's physically close to us. But for soil, it's a paradox. It's exactly the difference. It's so close to us that we don't see it anymore. So that's the challenge. And I really hope that we will manage as journalists to make it more visible before the health problems get bigger and bigger. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Thank you, Pierre. And we're going to go a little bit into how you're doing that shortly. Sebastien, coming to you, we've kind of tackled the sort of public health element and looking at the communications and journalism side, but you work with massive businesses. And we've heard from Zuzanna and from Pierre just the scale and the urgency of this problem. But we are seeing that businesses perhaps are not moving quite as fast as we might like. What is it that's sort of holding back big agribusinesses and others who have raw materials in their supply chain, they have soil as part of their supply chain? What's holding them back from sort of 100% backing soil positive agriculture?
So that's an interesting question. First of all, I think in the strategical goal and plan, in terms of sustainability for all those big companies, large-scale companies that we're talking about, They all have 100% conversion of their supply chain in regenerative agriculture by 2030, 2035, 2040, according to the complexity of the supply chain. So it's a kind of already there, but it's a kind of complex. So that's why this question is very relevant, because actually you talk about soils, how it's difficult to, how to know, like convince the citizen that's an important topic. But if I go back 15 years ago, when I was talking about soil in front of farmers, and at this time I was alone in my car, I didn't have like so much people with me, we were not working in 30 countries, and I was alone in my car, I was talking about soils, earthworm, soil biota, how important it is to convert the sun into plant for the soil. You see, like, you know, the sun without plants, you know, it hurts. So that's the same for soil. You need plants, you know, in between. I was a kind of fool, you know. People were thinking, oh, who is this guy, this agronomist? He's talking about soils, he's not talking about fertilizer, he's not talking about yield all the time. So, I mean, it takes time for an idea to go in the mind and make its pathway. So I would say the first lever we have is to have some examples that shows that we can connect the economics with the soil fertility. I think that's one of the aim, because, I mean, soil fertility is not a technical challenge. We all have the methodologies. I mean, like my team have everything. So if you just give my team like a white card, and if everyone wants to go in it and we restructure the market for it, it would be very easy. But the problem is we have the market structure which is highly connected to high yield and a certain view of quality. So we have to work in these constraints. So that means we have to go in front of farmers that do not really want to go into like soil fertility and everything we talk about, convince them that they will be more profitable afterwards. So the good thing is today, because of the price of fertilizer, because of the price of fuel and machinery, going into a more fertile soil is more and more profitable. So, I mean, we have to convince humans that are not really connected consciously with nature and so on and so forth, that it can be a good thing in their language. And today, the language is money. So, I mean, it's a kind of a pity, because we all go into environment because we feel something very strong inside us. But we need to convert that into a language to be sure that people are going into it massively. So that's why what we do now is really connecting soil fertility to economics, to profitability for the farmer. Then that means even a farmer that just wants to get more money will say, okay, I have an advantage to go in this kind of farming practices. And it's a kind of complex, so we need a pathway, you know. It's like level 1, level 2, level 3 regenerative agriculture. What you saw just before, like organic, agroecology and so on, is like the level 3. So sometimes we start from level 0. So that means the first step, 5 years. The second step, 5 years. So we are in a pathway that will last at least, for me, between 7 and 15 years, according to the farm infrastructure. So it's not long, but it's a middle term. And I think those big companies do their part and are doing a great job, because we work with those big supply chain, we can really enlarge our impact. And they are paying for that, and they have strong strategy. So I would say now they are playing their role, and they are going into these middle-term projects that are very important, because it's not short-term view to convert soils into something fertile.
Yes. We have to work at nature's pace, not perhaps the quarterly returns pace, shall we say. Thank you, Sebastien. And because we're talking about shifting the narrative and language, I kind of want to come back to you, Pierre, with this question. Because you've been, you know, trying to convert soil health and everything that's amazing about soil into stuff that people understand across different audiences. And you've also been speaking to farmers for years. And you've actually filmed inside soils. I don't know if anyone French here has seen Pierre's series, Roots. Quite an incredible idea. Can you tell us about why you did that, and how you are working on kind of shifting the narrative to get people talking and understanding that it's going to be a transition, it's going to take time, but it's worth doing?
I did that because my language is not money, but images and sound. So I mean, it's a bit like we started in journalism and cinema to film animals in documentaries because you only protect what you know and what you see. So that's what I wanted to do with soils in the series Roots, also in my on my YouTube channel. I use like cameras that have the form of guns to literally dive into the soil and go into the soil like you're walking in a cave. I used special mics to make it to make the sound hearable to us, because I think you would protect. We will all have a conscious of soil once we really see it and understand it. And the other way also I make people aware of the importance of soil is to film people, because the soil is really like the work of farmers, of scientists as well, that are working every day with Sebastien, with us, observing them to build the soil like we know it. And so I have these two ways to look at it in a really precise way, scientifically almost, and also to look at farmers working with it and living with it. I think with these two parts of my work, we will make the big audience aware of this problematic.
Making the invisible visible,
Exactly.
you might say, so we can protect it. Amazing, thank you, Pierre. And Zuzanna, I want to come back to you and talk a bit about the healthcare element here, if we're touching upon convincing people. So you're really putting the idea that food is medicine on the map in Europe, I'd say. I want to big up your work here, because it's really important. Can you walk us through a bit, just in case anyone here doesn't know what food is medicine actually is, and kind of how it actually relates to soil health?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and there is often a misunderstanding of what is food is medicine. A lot of people think, oh, it's just general nutrition, and I get very fired up to try to correct it. So food is medicine is a movement that originated from US already 30, 40 years ago, but it really caught up the speed around 15 years ago. So food is medicine works on the edge between nutrition and human health, but what's very unique about this movement is that it specifically focuses on putting accessibility to healthy food as a part of the healthcare and as a part of the health delivery. So just with plain words, instead of telling people, oh, you have diabetes, you should change your diet, we prescribe specific diet and we provide this diet with different models, either medically tailored meals or food pharmacy or produce prescription. And Rockefeller Foundation is one of the main funder of this movement in US, and they just 10 days ago, they released a white paper calculations where they try to account how food is medicine movement, if it would start covering all of the patients that would be eligible for such a prescription, how it would affect the food system and the demand in US. And every year they would put around 50 billion into small scale and medium scale regenerative farming systems if we would start scaling up the startup solutions. So I think it just, the fundamental link here is that farmers are our pharmacists, especially when we talk about non-communicable diseases. And in Europe, according to WHO, around 50% of people will die and suffer from chronic diseases. So it's not only a major suffering, conditions, but it's also a huge amount of money every year. The calculations are from 10 years ago, so probably right now it's way bigger, but every year we're spent 700 billion euros of management of chronic diseases. It's management, right? It's not prevention, it's not reversal, but it's management. So people are sick and we're just making sure that they don't die for a longer time. So yeah, I think if we would start, and in comparison, the CAP money, the Common Agriculture Policy, it's half of it for 7 years. So if we would just start allocating, 1% of what we are spending on management of chronic diseases towards farmers and solutions as food pharmacies, we are talking about huge shifts in human health and the farmland. And I just want to kind of close up with one more thing is so we run produce prescription programs for low-income diabetes type 2 patients, and on our budgets, we spend at least 1/3 or even more of our budget of our programs directly on the food from local organic farms. So I think if more medical programs would, allocate 1/3 of their budgets directly to farmers, we are also talking about a major public demand increase, a stable demand, and demand that could really start accounting for having, going away from monocultures and going into much more diversity on the farm, because we're also able to educate people how to eat sorghum, how to eat all different kind of millets, because people are open to hear about the health benefits, and then in consequence also, of course, the environmental benefits of such a produce.
Amazing. And actually, I'm not done with you yet, because I'm going to drill down into what you're actually doing, because it's pretty awesome. So can you explain what HarvestCare is doing and kind of give the audience a picture of, if I have diabetes and I go to the GP and I'm like, I need a solution to this, what are you going to do for me? What is the solution that you're actually bringing, and why is that so different to how we're doing healthcare now?
Yeah, so instead of the GP telling you for 5 minutes on the visit, please change your diet, off you go, you're on your own. We take people, especially that are on low income, difficult situations, and for 6 months we provide them free organic food products. This is a box of around €40, which is quite substantial for a family, with local grains, beans, vegetables, nuts, etc., etc. And then additionally, we also have social elements, so cooking workshops. We go with people to the farm so they can do a farmer fitness. They have consultations with dietitians, and we run it as a randomized controlled trial. And the reason for that is because we are trying to convince municipality healthcare insurers to start paying for such programs as a part of their healthcare delivery. So I think the ultimate, rather just telling people, Sebastien will go to the farm and say, yeah, just do this. No, you grab their hand and you help them to go all the process of the change, of behavior change, which is very difficult. Behavior change is very difficult.
Yes, exactly. Amazing. Everybody look up HarvestCare. They're doing some really radical stuff in the Netherlands. Sebastien, I'm going to come to you. So you're operating in over 30 countries, so across many, many different cultures. What would you say is the sort of, if you could summarize it, the sort of universal tipping point that convinces farmers most to commit to regenerative agriculture?
I think the most common misunderstanding about soils are their function, but also the most common misunderstanding is that soils makes plant. But actually that's the opposite. That's the plant that are making soils and that are maintaining the soils. So when a farmer understands that it's not the soil that is producing the crop, but that's the farming system as a whole, and the crop rotation, cover cropping, and everything that happens on top of the soil that can maintain or destroy the shape of the soil, then something changes. So I would say the most common tipping point that can convert or convince someone to take care of the soil is, okay, the soil by itself cannot maintain. I need to maintain it by constantly flowing the sun energy throughout plant materials. And this is the basic of thermodynamics, I would say, and this is the basic of physics and energy exchanges and conversions. But people don't understand that biology comes from physics. So we need to comply with some physical rule, and especially this one. So we are all running in this room through sun energy, but not directly. We need a medium, which is a plant that converts sun energy into something we can consume. An animal can consume it, we can consume the animal, but at the end, it's still sun energy. So when you understand this process, and when the farmer says, okay, if I convert enough sun energy for the soil and for my crop, then I can have a kind of a balance in terms of carbon. And then he links the carbon balance of the farm, of the soil, to this process, and then he can master it. So it's a kind of putting some numbers and facts around these basic processes. And then when you tell the farmer, okay, you need 15 tons of dry matter to feed your soil, like a cow. A cow needs something like 5 tons of dry matter per year to sustain in terms of high. So a soil needs 15 tons of dry matter. Any source. Like it can be manure, it can be cover crops, it can be plant residues, anything. So then the farmers start to think, okay, if I need a thriving soil, I need to feed the soil with this dry matter, so dead plant materials, basically. So what does it mean? And then if you objectivize that their systems is not supplying enough, and that's why the soil is not fertile anymore, you think, okay, what can I change? And then we can start to think about diversifying the crop rotation. We can think about planting more advanced cover crops. We can think about putting some more manure or organic materials into the soils. So I would say clarity comes with knowledge, but sometimes, you know, I think the worst decision we take in our life is when we think that something is true, but actually it's not true. And then you take decision up to that. Then you can destroy anything with this kind of process. So that means, okay, you have to comply with the truth. And that's it. That's about science. Science is about finding the truth and not want to impose your opinion. You know, opinion is not facts. So, I mean, if you want to get the nature back to you and helping you in your processes as a farmer, you need to comply with the natural rules. And they are made like out of you, out of your opinion. So that's why we start anything with the farmers by getting the truth of the farmer, by exchanging knowledge, trainings, getting these human connections. Then that helps to clarify those processes. And then we can start to rebuild the entire farming system up on those practices and these 15 tons of dry matter. That means then when the soil will start to rebuild, we can start a new adventure, which is input reductions. Chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and so on and so forth. So that's why you have several steps to the transition. That can be a bit too slow, but I mean, by making this slow pathway properly, you are sure that the farmer will not go back. So that's why it's very important, and we start with these simple facts.
Absolutely. Start with the science and also our relationships with each other as the foundation for change at nature's pace. Thank you, Sebastien. So we're coming to the end of the panel, and I want to ask you all a question. Pierre, you said to me a few weeks ago that the biggest reason that you came to Change Now was that there are people in this room who have the power to change the infrastructure of our society to support soil health. What's the one thing you would all ask this audience to do coming away from this session?
I think it's a very good sign that you have the power and that you are sitting in this room in a time of ecological backlash. I'm really proud of you sitting here and being here for climate action and environmental action and soil action as well. So I mean, from all what there is also one misunderstanding that you might share with me. I mean, from the Pierre that I was 10 years ago looking at soil and meeting farmers for the first time on my report, was that I also, you said it a little bit, Sebastien and Zuzanna already, but we have a different space, and I think you share it in your companies and in your organizations. We are often organized and structured for the short term. And when I meet the farmers on their farm and on their fields, I notice that for this transition, they need us to think long term, because these transitions, as you said, Sebastien, just now, they are really long, and they need us to support them, not for only one change now and 1 year, but if you're sitting here, you need to sit here next year and in 5 years and in 10 years, and to think like a farmer to support this transition on the long term. I think that's what I want you to remember from this session.
Thanks, Pierre. Think long term, think like a farmer. Love it. Zuzanna.
So if you're in healthcare, I would like you to start thinking about the agriculture as well. And if you're in agriculture, I would like you to start thinking about healthcare, just so we can start accounting for the connection and the consequences that those two systems have on each other. And we can start thinking in terms of, finance, education, programs, projects, policies within the agri-health systems. Yeah.
Amazing. Start linking the two, thinking holistically. Sebastien.
I would say science has brought up out of obscurantism. So I would say science is for everyone. So just teach this basic principle of photosynthesis. We all live on photosynthesis, sun energy converting into plant, convert into humus, converted into crop. So this is the beginning of the cycle of life, and that's why on Earth we have lives. So I would say just spread these simple facts, figures, and processes.
We are children of the sun. Yeah. I love it. Thank you to the panelists. Can you all give them a big round of applause?